Hi, good day, everyone. Yes. Yeah, welcome to another live coding session. And this is the third live coding session for this stage. As stated last week, we'll be going further into the use of pandas and performing a bit of visualization today. So today's live coding session should not take more than 45 minutes or thereabouts to just showcase what pandas is and how it can be used for exploring data sets. So after that, then next week will be the last live coding session for this stage. And after that, then the live coding session for next week will also border on the further use of pandas and other visualization tools for exploring whatever a data set is. So without wasting much more of our time, I hope everyone can see my screen. So moving on, the data set that we'll be using today was downloaded from Cargo, and then the data set will be released to us after the live coding session in case you guys want to follow along later or try to get a hang of whatever it is that we are doing. Um, okay, for the sake of the people that are here currently, let me just try to pick up the data set. So the data set is a data set about hotel booking, and the data set was procured from Cargo. So for the benefit of those that are currently in the meeting, I'm going to be pasting the data sets, the link to data sets via the chat box. Okay, so I'm currently trying to paste the data set. So that is the link to the data set, and you can download it, but I advise that you probably try to leave it for now, and then later when you are going through the course content, you can just try to follow along, or later when you can just review the live coding session again, the recording of the live coding session on YouTube, and then try to perform all of these functions, because trying to follow all of this in real time might leave you stranded a bit when you don't actually um when you're having issues trying to figure out what is being done in a part. Okay, so moving on to the code. So I downloaded the code locally. So when you get to the Cargo page, you should be able to download the data sets immediately. So after downloading the data set, it will be downloaded as a zip file, which you can just upload from your local PC to whatever it is, to whatever collab, whatever notebook you are using. If you are using Jupyter notebook or if you are using collab notebook, any of the two is fine enough for you to work with whatever it is that you want to work with. Okay. Okay. So the link to the data sets will be shared again on the Slack channel after, but I've sent it to the meeting group chat once more. And we have a funny scenario where the link that was used for the last live coding session, an intern was saying that that was the data set they were using for the quiz. As I've stated unequivocally numerous times in this stage, we have said that you should try to go through every course material before you attempt to take the quiz, because when you don't go through the course materials, you will get some you run into errors that you think is based on our you think it's from us, but it is as a result of you not actually following the instructions to the latter. So the quiz, the data set, and I even remember that in the last live coding session, the data sets that we used to data set, even the data set that was meant for the quiz was also showcased on the live coding session. So it is very, very alarming when an intern now comes up and say that the data sets that we used for the live coding session was what they were using for the quiz, and then trying to blame it on us that the reason why they scored low in the quiz was because they were using that data set. I mean, so please, again, we are employing you guys to please try to ensure that you always go through course content and follow the instructions, because when you do all of this, you will not have issues that will inquire you to start having dialogue with us, that you feel that okay, these things are happening because of the way the internship is being run, but it's actually due to you not following instructions to the letter. So once again, everyone at Amoye, we're employing you guys to please always follow instructions and go through the course content. So after going through the course content, that will enable us to have a seamless flow for the internship. So the data set for today, as I've said, is the one that we got from Cargo. And as you can see on the right hand side of my screen, left hand side rather, I've updated the data set. So as usual, when we are working with Jupyter notebooks or Collab and stuff like that, we try to leave our imports on the first line. So I'll be importing what I need. The first thing I need is pandas. So whoever is that, can you please mute your mic so as to not constitute a nuisance? Yeah. So after importing pandas, I also import NumPy as MP. I'm also going to import matplotlib .pyplots as plt, and lastly I'll be importing cbone as sns. So matplotlib and pipe and cbone should be the only new libraries, if they are new to anyone, is because they are libraries that are used for visualizations. So these libraries are used for making plots and different kind of plots to visually showcase the data rather than just text, because it seems that it's easier for people to grasp visual data than they would when they see the same information relayed with numbers only. So after making our imports as usual, then what we need to do now is to read in the data set. So reading in the data set is pd.readcsv. Okay, so I'm just going to copy the name of the data set from here, and then I'm going to paste this here. So the data set has been read, and as usual, we just check the head of the data set. So let's check the first 5 things in the data set. So we see that this is a lot of stuff, and when the data set is quite large, you see that in Jupyter Notebook, in Collab Notebook, these things are not the columns are not showcased fully. I'm sorry if I sound as if I'm a little bit slow, because I have to switch between coding and then accepting people into the meeting. So the link for the data sets. Okay, so once again, I'm going to drop the link for the data sets on the in the chat box so everyone can get that. But as I've said, I don't advise anyone to currently use the data or follow along, because if it is actually a new thing, it might be beneficial for you to focus more on the lesson, and then later you can go through the recording and then perform all of these operations with the data where you understand better. So the link to the data set has been posted once again, and this will also be posted to Slack after the live coding session. So as I was saying, when the data set is quite large, you see that when you are checking the data set, you'll not be able to see all of the columns. For example, you can see that when we get to this point after adults, there are 3 dots that we can see here. These 3 dots signify that there are some things here, but um, due to the way the internet is run, it will not be optimal to showcase all of these data sets. So you have to be able to get all of these when you actually want to view them. So let's get the first thing, which is df.info. Okay, that should be a dot, not a comma. So df.info. So this will give us the info of the data. So as you can see now, the data set has 31 columns, and 31 columns, hotel. So this, when we go to the adults, that so you can see that stopped at adults. So the dot 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 signifies that there's a column for children, there's another column for babies, blah blah blah, until we get to where does it continue from? I think it continues from deposit type. So after from 9, stop at adults, skip all of
Hello, please, I can't hear you again.
I guess it's from his end.
Yeah, it's actually from his end. I can't hear him either.
Okay, thank you.
This from the side or from the side?
sorry for that break in transmission. I hope you guys can hear me now. So power supply got disrupted, and the spectral nets went off, so I had to like use the backup. So if you guys can hear me, just drop a thumb up on the chat so that I can continue.
I can hear you.
All right, thank you. So continue sharing my screen. Okay, all right. So as I was saying, so checking the info for the data sets, you can see that the data set has D type, it has objects, it has integers, it has floating points. So this is like a data set, and when you can even see, you can see that there are also no data, because the data set has a total of this is 119,390 rows. But out of 119,390 rows, we have in some cases, these are the non-null values. So when you have non-null values that are not up to the number of rows, then that signifies that there are some null data that are existing in the data sets. So to confirm the presence of null values, so we are going to use isna.sum. Okay, so now we'll be able to see the list of all of the you can see now the country column has what 488 null values. The agent column has 163. So sorry, this 16,340, and the company has the most null columns with 112 593,000. So when we see null data in our when we see null values in our data sets, the first thing we do is to clear that null value, because null values in data sets do not make their data sets usable when we are working on visualizations and other kind of stuff. So just as I was saying in the last live coding session, you have to like come up with a effective strategy for dealing with your null values. So in a case where I just decide that I want to drop the null values, okay, let me say I just want to drop now, okay, and I do this, you see that if I check the shape of this data set after dropping the null values from over 100,000 rows, we are just having 217 rows, and it is not sensible for as a data analyst or a scientist or whatever to try and work with just 217 rows, because imagine the amount of data that has been lost just the first you were trying to drop the null values and you have dropped all of those. So we have to come up with a better strategy for dropping the null value. So one strategy that we use is that sometimes we decide not to drop the null values. So in most cases, when we drop the null values is when the null values probably seem too many. So when the null values are too much, it might just be beneficial to just drop them. Drop that particular column. So the column that is actually causing this issue is because of this column here. That's the company column that has this much number of null values in it. So one idea is that when the number of null values in that column are much as it is in this column, you just the first thing you do is to just drop that column particularly. So after dropping that column, then you can now decide on a better way to handle with the ones that are few or what. So when we are working with dealing of null values, there's the option to fill it. There's a fill now option, but I'll not be showing that because even after dropping the values, we still have a lot of data, but not talking too much. So let's just go on. So let me call this one df2, and df2 is going to equal to df.drop now, and then call it. So the reason I have to name this df2, or why I have to do this, is because when you drop the null values, when I call df.drop now, and I run this code, if I check let me just say is sum, okay, let me just dot sum dot is now dot sum. So when I run this now, you see that for all of these columns now, there are no null values. But immediately I go to another column, let me say here, and run this same code, df dot is now dot sum, you see that the null values are showing again. That's why, because the way it happens in pandas is that the idea is that you can perform operations that you might want to change. So there are operations that you might have performed in error. Let's say the operations that you might have performed in error, or operations that when you were performing those operations, you probably provided the wrong column or something like that. So pandas wants to give you an easy way of referring back to the original data set. That's why the changes you have made are not permanent. So that's why now, if I want to have a reference to the data set where I have dropped those values, I have to use a variable to store the new drop value. Another option that we can use is to say drop now and plus this. There's something called in place. So when you plus in place equals to true. So in place equals to true. Let me see if this can help us explain this. In place, if it's to load, it is not coming. So what in place does is that in place tells pandas that, okay, these are the parameters that we can use. Okay, you can see in place whether to modify the data frame rather than creating a new one. So what pandas does is that for each of those operations that you perform, they create a new data frame. So if you want those operations, when you are sure that this operation is what you want, then you provide the in place function to know that, okay, you want that data set to actually be edited. But in my own case, I prefer to use another variable to store the new data, so that in any event that I make a mistake to the df2, I just have to come here. This place serve as a checkpoint for me. So I just have to do is to come back here and we run this cell. And after running this cell, I'll be what at this point in time, and then we change the error so that I will keep working. So this helps us to ensure that we don't have to keep reloading the data set and performing plethora of operations again. So as I was saying, dot drop now exactly. So after dropping this, no, I don't want to do drop now because drop now is taking away all of the rows. So the first thing I want to do is that I want to drop the country. I don't need this now. So I want to drop that country column that has a what? That has a lot of null values. So if I drop this company column that has a lot of null values, then when I perform the drop now with the other two columns, I will still have what? A better, okay, sorry, df dot drop. Okay, I have to provide AXIS.
No, like everything was still.
Sorry, are you referring to me?
Like what you see?
Yeah, they deliver the line.
Like what you see?
Similarly, can you please mute your mic? Yes.
What did you
Try it.
Please, we
Okay.
don't like what we see. Oh. Can you mute your mic?
I think the mic has been muted. So I just don't want it to probably from next live coding session we'll turn off the feature for people to unmute their mics. What we'll just be using is a platform for people to just drop a chat. So if you have a question or something, you raise your hand, you drop a chat. Probably that will enable us to not have issues like this. Okay, so moving on, as I was saying, so I have to drop this company. So after dropping this company in the axis, if I just to showcase what axis is doing here, I think I said this last week also, but if I drop this now, you can see company was not found in axis because what I want to drop is a column, not a row. So if you don't provide axis, the default axis is 0. So when the default axis is 0, it looks in the rows. That's the index to check for this. So if it does not see this in the index, it returns that error. So when you provide axis is equal to 1, you can see now that, okay, this. So if I say I want to check the columns in this df2 now, dot columns, and print out all of the column names, you see that we don't have anything like country. Where was country meant to be? Country was meant to, sorry, company was meant to come after agents. So if we look for agents here, agents, you can see that the next column, there's no company there. So now, after doing this, if I now decide to do a drop now for the other two columns, and then check the shape for this one, so you see now that, okay, after dropping the company and then dropping all null values, we still have over 100 over 100 rows of data, which is very, very is enough for us to work with. So if it were to be in a scenario where you were working on a project and that company column is very, very important, then you have to relay it to the client or whoever it is that you're trying to deliver to, that this company column needs to be worked on. So it's either they bring more data or you try to just fill it with the most occurring company. So over the time, I think when in the next stage for the machine learning guys, you see how to do a fill now with mode, because there are ways to fill data sets. You can either fill it with the mode or the mean value, depending on what type of column that is. But we are just dropping them for today. So we can see now that after dropping this, we still have over 100 rows of observations, which is very nice. So therefore, now I can say for this, let it be done in place. So if the drop now for df2 has been done in place, if I check df2.shape now, should expect that what it has reduced. And if I do the df2 dot is now dot sum, and then you'll see that there's no null value. So with this now, we are good to now start our whatever visualization. If you want to create a model, whatever it is you want to do with, at least you're already in good hands. So one thing we should not do now, okay, is let us now try to split the data sets, because the data set, as we have seen, it contains both numerical stuff and contains both categorical stuff. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to be selecting just the numerical df. There are many ways you could do it. Some people prefer to select just the columns, but I like to just split out just the numerical df for me to be able to like perform easy operations just to that data frame. So to do that, all you just have to do is from df2 select the types. So there are two ways to select the type. You can either use the include option or the exclude option. So I'm going to be using that. So if I say for this one, I want you to include every d type that is either a integer, that is either an integer or that turns out to be a float. So that's what this stuff here is saying. Oh, sorry, I don't think this should be in a string. I think this should be the data type. So this is int and this is float. So this numerical data, I'll run this now and you see that this has run. So if I check the info for the numerical data, sorry, for the numerical df and check info, okay, I run this, you see that every d type that is there is it's either an integer or it's a or it's a float. So this way now I've ensured that if it happens that I want to work with just the numerical values, that's the columns that have just numerical values in this data set, then all I just have to do is to refer to the numerical df, and I'll be able to perform those operations. So we can do the same thing for the categorical. So to select for the categorical, all we just have to do for the categorical is to just follow the same step. Categorical is equals to df2 dot select d types, but this time instead of using include, I'll use exclude. Control V. So I'll come here and change this to exclude. So if I do this to exclude all of this, if I say categorical dot describe or categorical dot info, sorry, and I do this, you see that everything that is there does not contain int or float. It's only objects. So this way works is because we have just 3 type of data types, but you can have multiple data types. Just the date time data type. It's possible that you might not have the object data type. You might have even the string data type. So if you know that you want to exclude just one data type, you just do that. If you want to include just one data type, you just do that. So this way now, I've known that, okay, the categorical df is holding every categorical columns, and the numerical df is holding every numerical column. So after doing that, the next thing that we can now do is to start some sort of visualization. So most times we call it exploratory data analysis. So exploratory data analysis is where we start to get information and insight from the data. So the way we are going to do it for this live coding session is we are going to do a bit of numerical only exploration. We'll do a bit of categorical only exploration, and then we'll do a combination of both. So the first, for the numerical only, let me start with the categorical only. So I'll add a text here. So this is going to be categorical only. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we'll take the categorical data and we'll describe it. after we do this, you see now that all of these columns here are what? They are just the categorical, and the things that we are saying are the what? The unique values. That's the number of unique values in this category, the most common unique value, and the frequency for that most common. So for example, we have those two different type of hotels in this our data set, and the city hotel occurs more than the what? Occurs more than the other type of hotel. We don't know the other type of hotel yet, but what we know is that what? The city hotel occurs more than the other type of the hotel in this data set, and it occurs what? 71,181 times. In the deposit type, we have what? Three different type of deposit type. If for customer type, we can have four different type of customer type and stuff like that. So the first visualization that we'll do today is let us so now we're using Seaborn. So the first one we're going to be talking about is count plots. So what the count plot does is that you give it a data set, and it gives you a bar chart that counts each of those, that counts each of the what, each of the category that showcases in that column. So therefore, I want to do a count plot for data. So categorical. So normally, if I normally previously what we do is to just say categorical data, select the what, select hotel. Okay, but this should give us a warning of sorts that let me see. Key error, have a key like. So the reason why this is not working as expected is because Seaborn has like changed the way their data set, the way it works now. So previously when we do this, that's if you are going through some, if you are going through some other old codes or something like that, you see where they do this a lot. So the reason why this is not working is because Seaborn, those times they used to say a warning that this will be stopped soon. So they expect, if I just over my mouse on here, you can see that this is how they expect you to use it, to use this function. They expect you that you provide the data sets. After providing the data sets, you now provide the what? The column, and you fill all of these values with whatever column you want this to be. So if I want to provide a count plot now, so I want to provide a count plot for the categorical data. Okay, I'm working with categorical data, and what I want to count is the what? The hotel column. That's what my X is showcasing for. So there has to be an E here. So if I do this and run this now, you can see now that what? The categorical data has been counted. So as you can see, as it said, the city hotel add more words, add more occurrences, and you can see this the city hotel with around 70,000 plus. And the other type of hotel we now have is the what? Is the resort hotel. And the resort hotel has just what? The resort hotel has just over what? 30,000 plus occurrences in the data set. So we can see now that in this data set, people go to city hotel more than they will go to the what? More than they will go to the resort hotel. That's the first visualization that we have done. So the second visualization that we're going to be doing is we're also going to be doing another count plot, but we're going to be doing a count plot for a column that has what? More than one, more than two, so that we can see how this works. So we can do this, and then we'll say that instead of this, so let's just select another column that had more than two stuff. So let's see something like market segments. So let's say markets underscore segments. The market underscore even okay, yeah, it's market underscore segment. So if I do this and run this now, so the count plot is going to watch count each market segment. So you can see now that we have a corporate market segment, the online TA, blah blah blah. But this thing is they are already going what's into each other. So this is one of the things. So you have to like be able to work with the figure that you are plotting. So to sort out this issue now, one thing we can just do is to just say PLT. PLT is matplotlib that we plotting before. So PLT is in charge of anything that is relating to the plot. Most of the plotting tools that we're working with today, they are working based on what matplotlib has provided to us. So they just extend matplotlib. So anything you do with matplotlib can also be extended to those. So if I say plot dot xticks TICKS, that rotates equals to 90, I think. So if you do this now, Is this rotation? I think this should be orient or something.
Rotation.
Okay, rotation. Thank you very much. So when you plot the x, you can see now that what we are trying to tell this x ticks means these are the ticks. So this tick 1, this tick 2, this tick 3, blah. So what I've told this x tick now is that we want this rotation, the x tick, because we know that if the x ticks are rotated normally, what will happen? They will clash with each other. So we want it to rotate at a what? 90 degree. So if they rotate 90 degree, each of them will what? Have their own line. And there is no way, no matter how long that stick is, it will not what clash with whatever other tick it is that we're working with. It's not only 90, you can use something like 45. If you use something like 45 also, it will rotate it. You can see this is rotation to the 45 degree. So we can see now that the online TA is the most market segment that we have, followed by offline, then groups, direct, corporate, and these ones are very, very small that we are not even seeing them on the chart at all. So that is the count plot for categorical data. If you try to do a count plot for a numerical data, you will run into issues. Why is that? Because numerical, what count plot does is that it takes it's just like you trying to count every possible different numbers that you can get, and numerical data you get is unpredicted. So you just be having one occurrence. Let's say, okay, it's possible that a particular number showcases 3 times or 4 times, but most of these numbers 0.55, 0.76, point something, they will occur just once in your data set because it's numerical. So if they occur just once and you're trying to do a count plot for that, then that is what's going to be an issue, because you're just like causing a lot of stuff. Your code will just keep running and you might even get to memory error in the end if that works. So another thing that we're going to be doing is the value count. So another something that we can do is like deposit type. So if you want to like do if you want to like plot a pie chart, so imagine that, okay, we want to see, instead of seeing this as a bar chart, we want to see it in a pie chart. We want to see how in that particular column, we want to see what category occurs most, but we don't want to use a bar chart for it. We want to use a pie chart where it will show us in a circular format. So let us do it for something like the customer type, categorical. So to do that, we first use something called value counts. So what value counts does is that it works for categorical data. It's basically doing what this count plot is doing. It's just that after count plot does this, count plot showcases it as a bar chart, but value count just returns the value. So you can see now that for this now, so for the category, I made a mistake. I'm doing categorical for all of them. So I should select just a particular column. So something like customer type. Dot value can see now that this has counted that for the transient customer type, these are the number of occurrences we have. Then for the transient party customer type, these are the number of occurrences we have. For contract customer type, this, and the last is the group customer type that has just 473 occurrences in the data set. So to do this now, all you just have to do, because this is something like of a data set also, it is a pandas.serial data type. And I remember that when we were talking about pandas, we talked about serial. It is a 1D array where the indexes are the different customer type, and the values are the counting. That's the number of times they occur in that column. So all I just have to do is to say plots. And if I say I want to plot it, I'll just say I want to plot kind equals to what? PIE. And if I plot this kind equals to pi, you can see now that this is the customer type and these are the values. So the transient customer type has all of this value. Then the transient party contract. If you want to see like a figure also, you just provide a note. So if you say a note is equal to true, this is a note is basically it's basically like you trying to say you want to annotate. But if this doesn't work, then that means it is not for this kind of pie chart. It is actually for pie chart that you're plotting with SNS. But as I've said, this is we trying to showcase. You can also plot this kind of column using a bar chart, just as we have done for this. But this is we trying to showcase it in a what? This is we trying to showcase this in a pie chart, and then you can just include figures to showcase that, okay, this is the percentage for each of these. So with that, it will enable the stuff. So just to showcase how it is in a real life scenario, sort of, I want us to know that I don't know if can someone just confirm if they can see this new tab that I've opened. I think I'm sharing my window
Yes, sir,
and
we
not a
can see the
particular
new tab.
tab. Exactly. So all of these things, I'm just trying to show you that I don't know if I've said it before, but for the previous quotes we've had, I always tell people that this thing is not rocket science and you cannot know everything on your head. It's not something that you can calm it up. You just have to know how to be able to do these things and then apply new things for whatever task you are trying to perform. So let's say, for example, now I've written this code, yes, but I don't know. I want to perform. I want to do what? I want to be able to I want to be able to put figures inside there. So one thing I want to see if it's possible that we can do this with the df.plot. Df.plot kind is pi add figures. If I just search for this now, plotting, if you go to Stack Overflow, you see that all of these things that we're trying to do, some people have actually like tried to do it before, but what they have something. So if I say apply, you can see, I think what we just have to do is to just do something like add this auto PCT. This is what we need. So to plot a pie chart, you need to use dot plot dot pie, blah blah blah. But noting that to start the plots, you can use all those arguments that can be passed into plots. So if I click on this now, this will probably take me to the documentation of what? Of pandas for plotting, where they will explain what each of those arguments does. So if you come here, subplot, shared x, blah, 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 just keep looking for what we need. You see that the auto PCT there will be like something. They should explain it somewhere around there. Okay, but dot kind. So we can see that, okay, we can plot a pie plot. So let us keep looking. That's the figure size, the grid, legend, log, x ticks, y ticks, blah, 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 roots, table here, keyword arguments. I'm actually not seeing it here, but if we go through each of these, you see that there's a place where they will actually explain what each of these things are doing. So based on what we saw in this Stack Overflow post, and based on the fact that I've worked with some of these things before, you also build experience by working on things. So it's after building experience that when you see things, you understand that this is what this should do. So I'm fairly positive that if I take this, that's the auto PCT function. Let me just copy this and then come back to our code and just provide this here that I want this to happen, and I run this code again. You see that we should have what? Values that are showing what? That are showing the percentage of each of these each of these class type in our pie chart. So you should be able to go through documentations and be able to search online for whatever it is you want to do, because there's no way to there's no way to know it all off head where you just do everything you want to do. So but as long as you have the basic idea in your head and you know how to code what it is you want to do, then you have no issues, because you'll be able to navigate whatever it is you want to do successfully. So moving on to the next thing, we have done a lot of count plots, and I also want us to know that it's possible that even though we have tried to like separate, even though we have tried to like separate the numerical data from the categorical data, it's possible that some categorical data can be represented as what? In a numeric format. What am I trying to say? For example, things like yes or no. So things like yes or no, the people that are working on the data set might have decided to, instead of using yes or no to save the data, to save that column, to save that data, they would have used something like 1 and 0. So if we go into our numerical data, for example, okay, these are around here. Let us also call the describe function for the numerical data. So I think I name it numerical df dot describe. Okay, yeah, describe, sorry. DES. So once we describe this, you see that there will be some columns where the minimum will be 0, the maximum will be 1. And even from the column name, you will know something like that, something like is cancelled, is active, is false, is true. If they are providing is, if it is like a question, but it is in numeric format, you see that everything you have there, it will just be between what 0 and 1. For example, this one minimum of 0 and 1. Let me try to look for another column where we can see 0 and 1. For something like this, so now based on the name is repeated guests, you only have a value of 1 and what 0. See that the minimum value will be 0, the maximum value will be 0. Things like that. Yeah, just let me see, is there any other one? Okay, I don't think there's any other one. So the two we have here are the is cancelled and the what is repeated guests. So to also showcase this out, let me see. So this kind of columns, they are called numerical columns, but categorical in nature. So they are numeric in their value. That means their data type is numeric, but their what? Their nature, what they are trying to show is categorical. So to show something like that, let us use the same count plots. Now let us provide the numerical data, and after the numerical DF, let us provide the column. So let us count the is what we're doing again. I think exactly is cancelled. So if we head over to the cargo page where we got the data from, all of these columns were explained there. So if you do a counter, you can see it's cancelled. So 0 is corresponding to false, that this person has not at any time before cancelled the what? Cancelled the booking. That's what 0 there is trying to tell us. Y1 is trying to tell us that Y1 is trying to tell us that this particular customer has what indeed cancelled a column before. So that's what for you to also, if you do the same thing for is returning guests, is returning DUEST, and then run this returning guest. Okay, I think I'm not getting the spelling. So once you don't know the spelling of a column, it's not, just go back and get the correct spelling, because if you are mixing up the spelling of a column, it will always cause an issue when you are trying to run your code, where you feel your code should run, but you're having an issue because you are not getting the correct spelling for the column. Things like space, comma are enough to cause an issue in how Python is determining whatever it is you are writing, and your code will not run as you expect it to run. So if I run this now, you can see also that in this data set we have a lot of what? We have a lot of guests that are not repeated guests, while very few are repeated guests. So based on this data now, it is enough to conclude that customers don't like repeating what? Customers don't like repeating a particular hotel. Once they have gone to an hotel, it is what? That's the last time that they will get to that hotel. It is on rare cases where customers repeat going to an hotel. So just to showcase also the fact that it is hard to just plot out a numerical data, let me try to provide a numeric in a continuous data, ADR. So you see that this code, it will keep running even if I leave it for another couple of seconds, 10, 20, because what it is doing is it is going through every different single number that is existing in this column and counting it. So if you see a new number, initialize the count of that number to 1, see another number, initialize. So mostly everything, even when you try to plot it out, the image will be mumbled and jumbled together, because it is not easy for you to count what different numbers that are what. So at this point now, okay, it has gone to this point where it is trying to plot out. So it has finished counting, but now it is trying to plot out that data set. So I don't know, let's see if we can wait for a few more seconds for this to run. So if this eventually runs to completion, you will see that your data, the plots that you have, it will be very, very jumbled up together. So numerical data, the kind of processes you perform for numeric data are not the same you perform for a purely categorical data. So but there's a way you can bridge them together where you perform operations that will combine both numeric and categorical data. So I don't think we'll be able to go into that today. That will be talk for the next live coding session next week where we'll perform. So those kind of things are called, this is taking too much time, I'll stop it now. So those kind of things, they are called multivariate functions. So the way they work, because in visualization, they have some univariate and bivariate and multivariate. So just from the name, uni means one. So univariate is basically saying that one variable visualization. So everything we have been working on here, they are all ADR. Let me just go to the chat box. ADR is the price. Yes, the video is available on YouTube for you guys after. Okay, so to keep continuing, so as I was saying, so univariate are it's just like saying you are doing a visualization for just one column. Everything I've been doing is a what? Is a univariate visualization. Why? When we start making visualizations that combine two columns together, more than one column, then we are what? On bivariate. When it's more than one column, it's multivariate. But multivariate can also be what? Subdivided into two. So there's the bivariate where that focuses on just visualization that focuses on just two columns, and then actual multivariate that is like three or more. So continuing to this, so let me just go back and just put his returning guest here to see that we have counted for the what? His repeated guests. So let us now go into the numerical visualizations. The thing about numerical visualization is that they are not actually much. So the time that numerical visualizations come to life is when you're already performing bivariate actions, where you'll be able to showcase how numbers are affecting the what? Are affecting categories. Where you'll be able to see, okay, for this category, this is the particular numbers, range of numbers associated for a particular category, and a range of numbers associated for what? Another category. So to do that, the first one of the most popular ones is the what? Is all the most popular one is something is scatter plots. So the way scatter plots works is that scatter plots just showcases the data, just plots the data for different points. So but before we even perform the scatter plots, the first thing that we should do is the numerical df.core. So this is called the what? The correlation. So correlation is one of the things that we ask in the quiz. What this does is that it helps to see how each columns correlate with each other. So if there's a positive correlation, the correlation will be high. If there's a negative correlation, the correlation will be high, but on the negative side. If there is no correlation, that's when you'll be seeing values between 0 and 1. So no correlation is actually low values, but on both sides. Why? If you see a number that is very, very negative, even though it is very negative, that is a very low value, but it is trying to show the case that is a what? There's a high correlation within that data set. But if you look at this now, it is not easy to comprehend because these are all numbers, and it's you have to to check the correlation of one column to another. You have to start scrolling, checking this number and stuff. So there's an easy way to visualize this, and that is the SNS.fixmap. So this function was created specifically for plotting of what? Correlations. And once you perform this, enter, okay, it should be SNS. So once you perform this, your correlation will be plotted out to you in what? In a very visual way where you don't have to stress yourself with the numbers. All you just have to do is to stress yourself with the color. So this is the color bar that showcases the level of correlation. So when there's a positive correlation, the color will be around this range. When there's a negative correlation, the color will be around this range. If there are no correlation between the data set, that's when you'll be having the ranges between 0.4 to 0. So based on this now, based on this color, I can see that there is actually a type of negative correlation between the total number of special requests and the cancelled. So when, since this is negative, then what we are trying to say now is that when a person cancels the hotel, the number of special requests is, that's when someone cancels the hotel, canceling the hotel is 1. That's the higher value. So when somebody cancels the hotel, the number of special requests is what? Is lesser, because there's a what? A negative correlation. So the higher value of that one column corresponds to the what? The lower value of the other column. So based on this, I can say that, so when customers cancel what? When customers cancel the hotel, they have a lesser number of what? Special requests they are making. But if they what? If they don't cancel, that's the 0, there will be what? Higher number of special requests. We can also see something like that. If you see this now, for this column, arrival date of the year and arrival date week number. So in this one, there's a what? There's a very, very negative column. Another thing you should know is that each column is positively correlated with each other. That's why is cancelled is white. Is cancelled to is cancelled is white. Lead time to lead time will be white. Arrival date to arrival date will be white. So that's trying to show us that there's a positive correlation, because they are basically saying that this is the same column. So the correlation between both of them should be what? Should be very high. Another one, just as I stated previously, is the scatter plot. So scatter plot is a very, very useful one, but it is actually also very useful when you are working with what? When you are working with more than one column, because with a scatter plot you'll be able to visualize how one column numbers are increasing and what is happening to the numbers of the what? Of the other column. But since we are still on univariate, I'll just like perform a univariate for one column. So I'm going to perform it for the rise for the ADR column. So PLT does scatter. I'm going to say that numerical DF and the what? The ADR. So if I do this now, I should have a scatter plot. You can see it's missing a positional statement. So the way it works is that you cannot just, the way scatter plot works is that they have to be X values and they have to be Y values. So if I want to hack this now, because there is no, I just want to plot the scatter plot for one column. So what I can just do is I can just say that for the X, let it be a what? A range. And the range will be for what? It will be for what? The length of the what? Of the data set. So if I say numerical DF, that's for DF dot shape, and I'm going to select the what? The first shape. Then I'm going to make my Y. My Y is what I want to plot. So if I run this now, so you see now that there's a scatter plot, but the scatter plot is not actually showing anything, because the range of prices are what? Between the is only one. This is an outlier here. The range of prices are between what? They are lesser than 1K. Range of prices are between 0 and 1,000. But there's one particular hotel that has a very outlier price of what? Of 5,000. So this is an outlier. So this is a way for you to determine what is called outlier data. Outlier is a data point that is very, very far from every other data point in your what? In your data. So next week I think this will also be spoken about. And even if it is not, when you are talking about modeling, that's working on a data set for modeling, you see more of this there. So this is an outlier. So this is me. I've like tried to hack a what? A scatter plot. But this scatter plot now for the X values, you can see X values is just going from 0 to 100,000. So this X value does not really have any meaning, because it is not another column. But when we start performing bivariate visualization, that's when you will see that what? This scatter plot can be used to showcase how the price is increasing based on the what? The values of another what? Of another column. So another one that I'm going to be talking about is the disk plot. So apart from the fact that I want to see the scatter plot, we also want to see something called the distribution of the data. So the distribution of the data let us know if it is a what? A normal distribution. I was talking, I wrote, so this will be this plot, and then with this plot for what? For numerical DF underscore DF, and this is the what? This should be the ADR. So what this will be is that it will plot. Okay, is there no underscore? I think there's no underscore. So you can see now, this is the plot. So this plot will be removed. So basically, you're trying to tell us that this plot function will not be what? Will not be seen again. Blah blah blah. This plot. So, but this is basically the plot of this data set, and you can see that from this plot, the ADR value is not going more than what? 100. But there's this long line that goes up to what? Above 5,000. That this long line not moving means that these prices are static. It is static up to, there are very very few data points that correspond to these prices. But from values between 0 and 1,000, you can see that this distribution is going up, and basically this is looking like a sort of a normal distribution. But because of that outlier, it is skewed to the what? It is skewed to the right. Just for me to showcase what outliers does in a data set. So for you to see that outliers are very bad, you will see that this outlier is one that is making this distribution not even show as it should be. So what I will do now is, this is the last thing I'll be doing for today. I will remove this outlier and then perform this plot again. So after removing this outlier and performing this plot, you see that the value has changed because the plot is trying to factor in that large value. It is not able to also showcase to us the inner visualizations that we want to see. That's one thing that outliers do to your data. Outliers do not allow you that opportunity to be able to like ADR is the price. I'm going to send again the link to the data set, and you can see where they explained all of the data set, every column and what each column corresponds. It will be explained in that link on Kaggle. But the ADR is the price that customer paid for staying in that hotel. So as I was saying, outliers, they change the scale of your data. So just to do this now, I'm going to get the outlier point, because based on this thing here, I can see that the outlier is just something that is above 5,000. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say numerical DF for the ADR. I want you to get the numerical DF. So let me put this inside another. Okay, sorry. Okay, this should be here. Numerical underscore DF. So I want when the price, the ADR price is equals to, or no, let me say is greater than 5,000. Exactly, because it is numerical. You can see that it is only one value where the ADR price is greater than 5,000, and that is for this outlier. So what I can just do is I can just say that, let me select something, let me call it a sub data frame, and this sub data frame will be for every value that is less than 5,000. So I've done that, yes. So I'll now come here now and pick this plots. So I'll now do this plot for this sub data frame, SUB, and then I'll run this. So you see the way our plot is now. You can see that our plot is bolder, and our plot is now showing us more insights into this numerical column. You can now see that for very very lower prices, the values, there are more prices around there, then prices go up. So our density, most hotels, the price for most hotels fall between this price of 100 to around 120 or something, and then it starts going back down up to 200, 300, and the max we are seeing, you can see that even though for things that are less than 5,000, it's very very rare to see an hotel price that is greater than 500. Hotel prices are actually just between 0 and around 300 or something, because that's where most hotel prices fall into. But on seeing this plot here, someone might be thinking that hotel prices are even up to 5,000. So that's what outlier can do your data. It changes how the scale of your data is going to be shown when you are visualizing. So you need to be able to tackle all of these outliers when you are working. So with that, we have come to the end of today's live coding session, and I hope you guys were able to learn one or two things from this coding session. So I will implore you to go through it again and work on the data set yourself, because it's not just about saying it. You have to be able to work on this thing hands-on. So when you're able to work hands-on on these things, you'll be able to perform better with them. So I'll share again the link to the cargo notebook, and the last live coding session will be a continuation from here. The last live coding session will be a continuation, and we might have another guest taking you guys for that session. So we'll continue from where I stopped, where we'll be going to bivariate and multivariate, where we'll be using the group by function to be grouping things and then making plots based on groups. And we'll also be doing stacked bar plots and for other kind of stuff. What is the reason for adding axis in df.drop? As I've said, if you do not add axis when you want to drop a column, when you do not have axis, the default axis to check is 0, and axis 0 corresponds to the row, and the things in the rows are the what? Are the values or the index. So if you are telling Python that you want to drop a column, let's say that column is named country, and you do not specify that this thing is actually a column, and you find it in the what? In the column value, not in the rows aspect, you'll be getting an error. So to specify that what we want to drop is actually a column and not a row, that is why we specify axis is 1. And how to plot bars facing right instead of upwards. So you will see that also in next session. There are two ways to do it. They are called horizontal bar chart, or you will specify that the y should be the what? The y should be whatever it is that you are plotting. But that will also be showcased very soon in the next bar chart. And to clean the null values completely, when you go through this session, the recording of this session, you will check it. But what I did was I first dropped the I think, was it the country or something, started with C. I dropped this column. Let me just go back to it. I dropped this column here. I dropped this column that started with C here because that column had the highest number of what? That column had the highest number of null values. Exactly. That's the company column. So after dropping the company column, I then did a what? A drop now. So the drop now made sure that the what? The null values were removed completely, and I still had a lot of values to work with. So with that, we have come to the end of today's live coding session. Once again, I hope you guys were able to learn something. Okay, already you are raising your hand. You want to say something?
Yeah. So I just want to ask a question. It's about the handling of missing values. Although you didn't mention it, but I have a question on it. That is using thresholds in handling missing values.
Okay, that's because, as I said, when I was handling the value, I said I'm specifying just to use null values. You can also use threshold. There are even ways now where you can handle null values based on the data set. You perform a machine learning prediction based on the values you have, and then use that to predict for the missing value before you work. So you can use thresholds where you use threshold when you have an idea of what that column is. For example, we can do something like and most times we use threshold when we want to do a random filling. Something like that can be let's say we want to use it, it will be like a numerical value that any value there might not really have much implications. For example, when we are you can even use categorical. An example where you can use threshold is like for a data set where you are working on work days. You know that your work days are going to be between Mondays and Fridays. So your threshold for filling that data set is going to be what? Your threshold for filling will be Monday to Friday, and you are going to be filling it randomly because you are not maybe actually specific about what particular work day, but you know that it has to be a work day. So you have specified a threshold for filling that data randomly, where you are filling it randomly, but you are making sure that it does not go above the threshold of what being a work day. So that's a scenario where you can use that. But most times when we are filling data for the standard method, that because filling things randomly and then trying to put a threshold can introduce abnormality in your data, because it might make your model bias when you are making insight, because it is not something that is accepted. It is something that was generated. It's synthetic. That is not the actual view. So as much as possible, we try not to fill data so as to ensure that whatever it is that we are showcasing to the world is what is actually happening, and it is not something that has been synthetically generated. So Ola is raising up his hand. That will be the last question for today. After that, we can end this session.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Okay, so my question is, I'm just thinking that if one goes for an interview, a technical interview, and
Okay.
I know that learning data analytics, data science, there's a lot of how do you call it? A lot of libraries in Python, and you mentioned that one does not need to memorize, which I'm aware of, and I by working with those libraries, a lot of times if I get stuck, I consult maybe Google or Stack Overflow and I get solution. But I'm wondering if one attend the interview, can somebody be allowed to probably look up for answer on the internet? Can't necessarily have to know all these libraries in Python. Thank you.
Mm, okay, for that question, in a technical interview, you won't be you won't I don't you will not be allowed, based on what I've seen, you will not be allowed to um search for answers. But technical interviews also do not try to ask you extravagant things, because it is also noted that these things are very wild. They are very wide. So what technical interview will do is they will give you de facto things. These de facto in the sense that they are expected that you should know these things. For example, they cannot tell you to drop the null values and then you have to start searching for dropping null values. So these are like standard methods that are regular, that they are methods that you have to know to showcase that you actually know your craft. You get? So it depends on how the technical interview is being run. That's why most interviews have stages. There will be a stage where you have to code online, where you have to code where you are being watched, and there will also be a stage where you'll be given a task where you have to get back with whatever it is you have done. So when you have to get back whatever it is you have done, they know that you have to consult things, you have to consult resources online for you to be able to perform and achieve your tasks. But for a technical interview, if it's a technical interview where you are expected to code live, you won't be asked extravagant questions where you actually need to search for something. You'll just be asked to create standard things that you should be able to know offhand. For example, for a data scientist, even without checking online, you should be able to perform machine learning classification or prediction on any data set. I'm not saying, so when I mean you should be able to do that, I'm not saying you should be able to perform it expertly, but you should be able to know all of the codes and the libraries, the model you'll be importing from your head, and write a notebook, an end-to-end notebook where you generate predictions. So when you now want to start refining your data, doing data engineering and feature engineering, and then trying to work on your data set to make it more clean and produce a better model, that's when you'll be able to what? You'll be able to check, you'll be able to check for things online. So just to answer that question, in technical interviews, there will be a range of questions you can be asked where there are things that as a data scientist you should know them, and there will also be stages where you'll be asked to like work on a project offline, where you'll be able to research and work on that project and then make your submission. So I hope that is okay for Olas. So for Olas Sukomi, please, you can ask your question
Thank
on
you.
the Ask Amoye. You're welcome. You can ask your question on the Ask Amoye channel, and I will drop responses to them as
Please
I
let
have
me
now.
quickly. It's just a short question, please.
All right, no
Can you hear
problem.
me?
Yes, I can
And
hear
please,
you.
when is the
Go
live
on.
coding session?
When or what?
When is the live coding session?
Are you asking about the time? It is always 12 to 1. 12
As
p.m.
in
GMT
when?
plus 1.
Date. The reason I'm asking about the date of the
Oh,
live coding
the
session
next
is
one.
yes, because
Okay, I can hear you.
I've been pending my quiz till when we finish all the live coding session. So I want to make sure that it doesn't.
Okay, I don't think you have to like pen your quiz. It is not necessary, but the last live coding session will definitely come before the ending of the stage. So the next live coding session
Okay.
is either going to be on Monday or Tuesday. It might not be on Monday because there might be a public holiday in the country we are in, but the time and date will be communicated to you guys. But I don't think it's overly necessary for you to pen your quiz if you are, because with what have been showcased already, I think the only thing in the quiz where you have not really showcased is the group by function. And after making a little bit of checks online, you can do that. Exactly as someone has said on the chat box, the live coding session has nothing to do with the quiz. So if you are good to go with the resources that we have provided to you and you have read all of the materials and gone through all of those sample code, you should be able to perform your quiz successfully. So I hope that is okay. So once again, thank you all for attending this live coding session, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you and bye bye.